Hey everyone, Coach Simon here with Top Tennis Training, and welcome to the 5 golden rules of the tennis forehand. So rule number 1 is all about that ready position and waiting to hit that forehand. Now before we go any deeper into this lesson, if you're serious about improving all aspects of your game, make sure you subscribe to the channel and you turn on that notification bell. Now the ready position starts with your grip. So we recommend using either the semi-western forehand grip or the eastern forehand grip. Now, if you want more help with the grips, we have an entire lesson on the different forehand grips. I'll link it beneath this video. So once you have the grip ready, it's all about that ready position. So in the ready position, you want to have the racket head slightly higher than the grip level. Also allows you to create some leverage right from the beginning of the swing. Leverage is basically force that we'll use over that oncoming ball. It also allows us to have the wrist laid back slightly, which will help us later on in the swing with that racket lag phase. So the racket head is higher than the grip level, I'm in that athletic stance, and I'm looking to hit my forehand. I want to cover around 60 to 70% of the court with my forehand. So anything to the right of me is of course a forehand, anything coming towards me should be a forehand, and even slightly to my left where I have time to run around that ball, I'm looking to dictate play with my forehand, and it starts with that ready position. So the non-hitting hand holding the throat of the racket, the strings could be either slightly towards the left side of the court or the strings could be facing towards the net. The racket head is higher than the grip and I'm in that athletic stance ready to now move to that forehand. Now if you want more help with your forehand, we have a free forehand guide that you can download right away. I'll leave the link beneath this video. All you have to do is click on that link that takes you to our website, simply enter your email address and we'll send you that free forehand guide right away. That's 5 steps to hitting the perfect forehand in tennis. Golden rule number 2 is making sure that we have that early preparation and that coil at the beginning of the swing. So after we land off that split step, if we recognize that we're able to hit a forehand, the first step is having that early preparation. So as quickly as possible, when I pick up where the ball's going, that first step will be to have that shoulder turn with the left shoulder if you're a right-handed player. So I'm coiling the upper body and I'm storing energy now in my trunk muscles, especially the side oblique muscles. This will allow me to then have that uncoil on the forward phase, but it all starts with that early preparation. I have that quick coil and I'm moving to the ball in that side on position. What we want to avoid is moving front on and then trying to prepare. We'll be late, we won't have the core engaged and we won't have the ideal forehand. But if we have that quick unit turn, so unit turn and moving to the ball side on, this allows me to now have the core engaged, but also look what happens to my swing. From this ready position, if I simply coil the body now, I haven't done anything with my arms or the racket independently, I'm already halfway through my swing. So just that quick initial coil allows me to have a great momentum created right from the beginning, and I'm also halfway through my swing simply by coiling the body. So work on that early preparation, work on coiling the upper body, and you'll really see the benefits from doing so. Golden rule number 3 is creating force over that oncoming ball. Force will allow us to have more control over that ball, it will allow us to produce more power, or it can also be translated into producing more spin because of the racket head speed. Now there are different ways to create leverage or force over that oncoming ball. And one of the best ways is to make sure that we reach a good power position. So a good power position, most of the pros you'll see as they get into that back position on their forehand, their racket head is higher than the grip level, This allows them space to accelerate that racket. This allows them to create that momentum. So you've coiled the body, now you get into that power position, and then you start that forward phase of the swing. If our racket is level, so if our racket is here in that power position, the space to the point of contact is very limited. It's very hard to then accelerate and build up that momentum because we have very little space to actually do so. But if I lift my racket head now and it's above the handle or the grip, now I have much more space, and this allows me that freedom to then build up that racket head speed. Another simple way to create leverage or force over that ball is the racket lag phase. Now this is prior to contact. You'll see the bottom of the racket pointing towards the oncoming ball. Now this can be done on either the straight arm forehand, so the extended forehand, or on the bent forehand. Either way, you'll see the pros reaching a position similar to this. Now reaching that racket lag phase doesn't require you to make sure that you stiffen the wrist and really force that lag. It can happen very easily if you follow a couple of simple rules. Number one, from the beginning of the swing, lay your wrist back slightly. Number two, making sure you get into a good power position. And number three, make sure that you're uncoiling, and this allows you to have that racket lag simply from opening the hips. So as I uncoil the hips, what's happening is you can see my racket starts to lag because my wrist is loose. So that relaxation is crucial in producing that racket lag. Power position, relaxation in the arm, I don't feel tension, I don't feel stiffness, and from here I now create that racket lag prior to contact. And prior to contact, it's also very good to work on your stances. So we have three main stances that we can use: the open stance, the semi-open stance, and the neutral stance. We try to stay away from the semi-closed or the closed, because once you start being in that closed stance, now for me to hit the ball cross court, extremely hard, and it's also very hard for me to uncoil the body, so I'll lose a lot of power, but it also slows down that recovery. So we avoid the closed stance if possible, and we also have a lesson on the forehand stances. I'll link it beneath this video. Now the stance will also help you to load and unload into that shot using the ground force and using the major muscle group in the body, which are the leg muscles. So if I'm in that open stance position, I'm in that power position, from here I can really drive up into that point of contact, producing a lot of racket speed from my ground force. The same is true with the neutral stance. If I step in now, from this position, I can transfer my body weight from the back leg to the front leg as I hit the shot. So power position, the body weight's on the back leg. As I start the forward phase, I now shift the body weight onto the front leg, and then eventually I go into that ball. So it's that body shift with the neutral stance. Now whichever stance you're using, make sure that you're loading with the legs, and this means having the bend in the knees. We're lowering the center of gravity, and this will allow you to then drive up explosively into that ball. Golden rule number 4 is finding your ideal contact point and trying to make contact in that similar zone time and time again. Now there are two different things to consider here. The first one is where you're making contact in relation to your body. Is it in front of your body, or is it on side of your body, or even behind the body line? And the second thing to consider is the height of your contact point. So we could make contact around head level, shoulder level, waist level, knee level, or even ankle level. And ideally, you want to find one that suits your game, allows you to be aggressive, but allows you to be consistent. In general, this would be between the hips and the shoulders. So somewhere in this zone here is what most players find comfortable and allows them to produce that spin, but also to flatten out the shot. Now, going back to the contact point in relation to the body, if we make contact on side of our body, what happens is you're stressing the wrist, the elbow, and the shoulder. And if you're consistently hitting the ball over here or even behind your body, eventually that leads to an injury, especially if you're playing with players who hit with power. So what we want to try to do is make sure that we're making contact in front of the body. And this is regardless if you're using that extended forehand or the bent forehand. What happens is, if we make contact here, now the whole body is supporting the racket head. Because the racket is in this position, now if someone was to push my racket, I still feel that stability because my body is supporting the racket head. Whereas over here, it simply goes onto the wrist, elbow, and shoulder. So contact point in front of the body and finding your ideal contact height will help you massively on those forehands. And golden rule number 5 is making sure that we follow through and finish correctly. Now what happens is, if we're already slowing down the racket when we make contact, we lose control of that ball. A lot of players think that if they slow down here, they'll get more control, but actually what happens is, because you start to guide that ball and push it, you lose control. Now what we want to do is the opposite. We want to make sure that while we're hitting the shot, our racket is still traveling at high speeds and we're aggressive with that finish. Now the main finish that you want to master is the across the chest finish. This is where you've made contact and now the racket comes across the body and finishes around that left shoulder. So if I'm in this position here, I know I have had a complete follow through and a complete finish on my forehand. Two things to focus on is making sure that the elbow come across the body and making sure that the bottom of the racket is either pointing down towards the court or even slightly to your left side of the court. This will ensure that you have that full finish all the way here. And this allows the body to actually relax in the most natural way. What we don't want to do is finish and tighten up, stiffen up, because puts a lot of stress on all the different joints in the arm. So from here, relaxation is key, but having that racket head speed. There are many different ways to finish your forehand, but in general, if you master only one, it's this across the chest finish. So a quick recap, we have golden rule number 1, the ready position, racket head higher than the grip, and looking to hit your forehand as often as possible. Number 2 is early preparation and that coil with the upper body. Number 3 is creating leverage or force over that oncoming ball. This can be done by reaching a good power position, by creating that racket lag, or also by using that ground force from loading up and storing energy in the legs. Number 4 is making contact in your ideal spot. This will change depending on the swing you have, and this will change depending on the surface you're playing on. In general, this will be between waist height and shoulder height, and it will also be in front of the body. Number 5 is having a complete finish, which will allow you to stay relaxed, still create that racket head speed, and hopefully reduce the risk of injury. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, please click that like button, subscribe to the channel of course, and turn on the notification bell. If there are any lessons you'd like to see from us in the near future, leave a comment down below and we'll try to film the most popular suggestions. Signing off, Simon from TTT, all the best and see you soon guys.